pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jenny, did you have the public hearing notice first?
No, it's at
Or is it-
45.
is it-
Public hearings at 5:45.
Okay,
So do we have to take roll or no?
yes. It's a meeting.
Steve,
Present?
Susan,
Here?
Marlon,
Here.
Chris.
Present.
Okay, Chris, you read it, didn't you?
Yes. Well, the basic issue is kind of, we had an application to put a cell tower in a commercial zoning district. And after careful review of your zoning code, it's almost impossible to put a cell tower anywhere in town because it would have to go in an industrial zoning district, which you have very little of in town. Sue did the research and found draft ordinance from Camdenton. Looks pretty good. I took it and rewrote it so that it fit into our zoning code format, and numbers are consistent with our existing code. And so the idea would be, it's basically enabling legislation that gives guidance to a cell tower company as to what they would have to do if they want to build a cell tower within municipal limits. And it's not easy.
Well, we were looking at number 7, which is on pages aren't marked. But it was talking about applicants for wireless telecommunication facilities shall locate, site, and erect said wireless telecommunications facilities in accordance with the following priorities. Subsection E7 being the highest priority and E7H being the lowest. But then it lists A through I, all the places that you could put one, and it's almost every zoning.
They could go in almost any zoning district as long as they meet all the other requirements.
But when it comes to height, which we have height regulations on all these, that would have to be a
That would still
special
have to be
permit.
met. Either you've got the size of the lot, because what our code allows is that you can go 10 feet higher for each 10 feet, you expand your setback. So, normal setback, side setback is 10 foot. If you want a tower that's 100 foot taller than the maximum allowed in that zoning district, you would have to come in 100 feet from each side.
That's an industry standard that has just been applied to.
Actually,
Code or
the height change is something that is in our code already. Most places, you're capped at how high you can go. It doesn't matter what your setback is. In the county, they don't allow anything over 55 feet tall, period. But they do allow cell towers.
But so they have to do a special condition when they allow a cell tower to be put on a particular piece of ground.
Never seen one done in the county.
They don't have any cell towers?
Haven't seen one done since the code went. It's real fuzzy exactly how they would address that. Their code is about the same age as Sunrise Beaches, and most of the towers were up before it came in.
Well, so that we have nothing in here that will allow anybody to put a cell tower anywhere because of the height.
They still have to meet height requirements. Yeah. And so which means they have a big piece of ground.
Yeah.
And again, the idea is the tower falls over, it's not falling over on their neighbor.
But what about all that crumbling down?
Yeah, then it ain't.
Yeah, that was a nice picture, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Have you seen that engineering report? Because I sure didn't.
It was an
Picture.
engineering report, wasn't it? Well, he had that whole book that showed how the engineer said it would fall straight. Well,
Maybe that's correct, and maybe they could provide you with evidence that you would say that convinces me it's not going to fall on a joint. But that's a maybe. I don't think you want to write in your code that it's okay, they'll always collapse that way.
But here's my issue then. We need cell towers.
We do, and they need to be carefully scrutinized and approved carefully.
So if
Not
we-
just you know, you can put one up anywhere in town.
Right, and if we do this careful scrutiny, we will have to still do a special condition for the height.
Mhm.
Then we don't have to have that in this code anywhere?
You know,
Okay. Does that answer your
It
question?
does, yes.
Okay, because I mean, I feel like we need another one.
we need more antennas in the air to provide cellular service
Yes.
to people. That's a different question of, do we need more antennas in the air? I mean, towers.
Towers.
Antennas, yes, towers, you know, cell service keeps changing the way it works. There literally was hooked onto the city water tower, a little mesh system that bounced off of antennas along the lake and went all the way up past the 48 mile.
Mhm.
And that was the Lexar internet service, and it worked just fine. It provided cell service and internet service to people all up and down the lake. So the technology does not require 170-foot tall towers.
So you feel the technology will get to the point where we won't have to deal with,
I think the
With the height.
technology is out there now. It's an implementation issue. Sticking a really tall tower up on a high point is a great way to get service to a lot of people very cheaply. But the cost then comes at, what does your skyline look like?
But if you're gonna put a 200-foot tower, you're gonna have
It's gonna have to be. on the
400
opposite side,
foot by 400 foot.
Something like that. Or-
so if they're doing it in the middle of a field somewhere, or on top of a mountain where there's no building,
It's a non-issue.
When you got school and highway, you have an issue.
Yeah, you don't want your cell tower blowing across and blocking the highway or hitting
Yeah.
the playground or any of those.
or
things.
crumbling.
Or crumbling.
So, I mean, if you wish to read each part of this and before you decide to say yes, I mean, that's where we're at right now. The next process is gonna be a public hearing. You know, the board has to say, yes, we like the language, but then it has, next August, or in August, it will be a public hearing right before your meeting.
Now, this isn't a decision date, this is a date to decide we should have a hearing on this language or not.
Right.
And, you know, Sue's brought up some issues that, you know, maybe we need to look at. And you may have some too, but that, again, your August meeting, you're gonna have a public hearing, and you're gonna see what additional issues you have or don't have.
And then we decide, or who decides whether it needs something added, or,
You do.
okay.
I'm just here to write what your ideas are.
And this is exactly what Camdenton had, or not Camdenton, I'm sorry, when this Osage Beach.
No, you gave me Cameron.
It was
Camdenton.
Camdenton. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where you copied it from, but you had a good one. I know Phil, I
Hey,
don't
it's
think
all
you read all
about,
that
it's all
himself.
about saving work.
Yeah, no, it would have been a lot of work to pull all that together from scratch. And
Yeah.
So it's comparable to what's in Camden, it's comparable to what I've heard, and when I have sat in planning meetings in Osage Beach, and they talked about cell towers, they talked about exhausting co-location first, but this is going back 15 years.
But this has everything in it. I mean, it has the descriptions of all the wording and everything. I mean, it was pretty,
I liked it. I made changes to make it applicable to the village and to fit the numbering in our code. But substance-wise, it is consistent with Camden.
the thing about it is we have nothing before. And it's something that's gonna come up, so we do need it in our code.
I agree with that.
So,
It's difficult to decide if there's not a specific site in question. You know, they say we want to put it here. This is a generalized thing that
yeah,
covers, you know, to make that process simpler.
right.
But
These are guidelines. These are
Right.
Guidelines. When you're
Yes.
looking at a cell tower application, this will give you a list of things that you would say, well, have we thought about this? Have we thought about this?
But that was not gonna prevent like a specific discussion when they have a certain piece of land and say, this is where it's going
No,
up.
exactly.
It's still gonna go down through that process to
Yeah.
get that.
But
Yeah.
at least we'll have something to lean on
Understood.
as far as,
It wouldn't have to always be an industrial rezoning to have a cell tower. It could go in the middle of a residential neighborhood if it meets these criteria. And, you know, if you don't have the whole neighborhood there saying, no, we don't.
So it provides different avenues to get one, and this just
Yeah.
makes a general
It is not
guideline.
by any means banning cell towers. It is actually enabling them in a way that our code currently does not. But in a controlled fashion, not just, you want one, you can have one.
So today we're just deciding whether we approve the language of the ordinance. And then as soon as we close this meeting, the board will do the same thing, and then we'll have the public hearing. And then after the public hearing, the board will vote on the ordinance.
The,
Or is it the planning and zoning?
the process would be the planning commission would propose this language by a vote tonight. Then it will go to a public hearing in front of the planning commission. After that public hearing, based on the comments you receive and any additional ideas you have, you'll either approve the language or recommend approval of the language is really what it amounts to. Or you would say, no, we want to make some more changes. But once this board has gone through the public hearing process on a final draft and recommends it to the board of trustees, then it goes to the board of trustees agenda.
To vote and be put in as an ordinance. Okay.
So not sooner than August, but could be longer.
All right.
Depends on what you come up with.
So I make a motion that we approve the language.
Second,
All in favor? You're
Aye.
supposed to say that.
All in favor? Aye.
And that's the end of the meeting, so you can close the meeting.
Close the meeting.
Make a motion to close the meeting.
Make a motion to close the meeting?
second.
Now you
Tissue
have to open